I'm Rick Leventhal. Breaking earlier today, President-elect Donald Trump endorsing House Speaker Mike Johnson for re-election. The House is set to vote on a speaker Friday following the swearing in of the new Congress, and Trump's backing just might make the difference. Trump took to Truth Social a few hours ago, writing, quote, "Speaker Mike Johnson is a good, hardworking, religious man. He will do the right thing, and we will continue to win. Mike has my complete and total endorsement." For more on what's going on in D.C., let's welcome in President and Executive Editor for the Daily Signal, Rob Bluey. Rob, thanks so much for joining the Leventhal Report.
It's good to see you, Rick.
Thank you. Good to be seen. Speaker Johnson has faced criticism over his handling of the recent spending bill. A lot of people thought he was a long shot to repeat his speakership, but now that President Trump is throwing his support behind him, does that change things? Will it help Johnson keep the job?
It certainly does help Speaker Johnson. You already saw a flood of other members of Congress come out and express their support for Speaker Johnson today, which signals that things are moving in the right direction as far as he is concerned. However, there remain at least one member of Congress, Thomas Massie of Kentucky, who says that he will vote against Speaker Johnson, vote for somebody else. And there's another handful who have said that they're undecided. So this remains a question. He can only afford to lose one vote among Republicans, given that razor-thin margin of 219 to 215 in the U.S. House of Representatives. So all eyes will be on those handful of undecided Republicans when this vote takes place on Friday.
Rob, explain why this role is so important. What is the Speaker's job and why does it matter so much?
Well, the Speaker of the House is a powerful position in terms of controlling a number of activities, including what actually makes it to the floor and comes to a vote. The Speaker also has a big say in who committee chairmen are, and the important act on January 6th of certifying the election will be in the hands of the House of Representatives. And so if you don't have somebody who's elected to the Speaker position, the House cannot proceed with the normal business. Now, of course, Donald Trump doesn't take office until January 20th, so there's a period of time where Republicans in a non-presidential election year could sort this out and have the time to debate this, as they did with Kevin McCarthy 2 years ago. They don't have that luxury this time. The Speaker election is on January 3rd. The next vote, big vote for the Electoral College, comes on January 6th. So they need to get their business done either on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday before the 6th rolls around. And of course, Rick, it's anyone's guess as to what they would do if Speaker Johnson comes up short, because there isn't another candidate who's essentially waiting in the wings. Some people have suggested Jim Jordan, but he's, again, tried and not been able to get the votes himself in the past.
Yeah, that Kevin McCarthy vote was insane. Weren't there like 17 attempts to elect a speaker before they finally did?
I remember it well. Yes, there were. There were a holdout of about 20 Republicans who insisted on major changes and reforms to how the House operates. Remember, as a result of their holding out for those reforms, some of them were able to be appointed to the Rules Committee in the House. And the Rules Committee is a powerful committee which decides which legislation ultimately makes it to the floor. And so you had members like Chip Roy and Thomas Massie and Ralph Norman, Freedom Caucus members, a couple of them, be able to exert their influence as conservatives who have traditionally been shut out of positions like that. Another big factor was, would the motion to vacate, that ability to call up the Speaker, basically a vote of no confidence at any time, be allowed for one member, or as the Democrats changed it, remember they increased the threshold under Nancy Pelosi's rule, and so that went back down to one. That's ultimately how McCarthy lost his job.
Wow. Well, I want to ask you about something else while we have you. We've discussed the weaponization of the Department of Justice against Donald Trump on this show quite a bit over the past few months. And now the Washington Post is reporting that not only does Biden regret stepping down from the race because he somehow thinks he could have won, he also says he made a mistake in choosing Merrick Garland as Attorney General, apparently because the Justice Department aggressively prosecuted his son Hunter, but slowed down the prosecution for President-elect Donald Trump. Your thoughts on Biden's thoughts on Merrick Garland?
Rick, we're finding out now Biden's true beliefs, and if it hasn't been already clear in terms of the weaponization, as you spoke about, in the lawfare that his administration pursued, apparently it wasn't aggressive enough. He wanted somebody who went even farther than Merrick Garland did, who was one of the worst attorney generals in our nation's history in terms of how he politicized not only the Department of Justice, but some of the agencies under it, and he used the FBI to go after peaceful Americans, whether it be pro-life protesters or political prisoners from January 6th. I mean, you can go down the list of the egregious things that Merrick Garland did, and Joe Biden still wasn't satisfied. And I think it just goes to show that Joe Biden will leave office as one of the most corrupt presidents, certainly of our lifetime. And with this new revelation coming out around Christmas about him doing these business dealings with his son Hunter in China and the photographs that were released from the National Archives, there's mounting evidence that there is a good reason to hold him accountable after he leaves office.
And isn't it something that we're only now learning about all that stuff, that we all had suspicions and a lot of people talked about it or hinted at it, and somehow they didn't release any of that evidence until he's about to leave office? What do you know about that? While we have a little bit of time left, I want to ask you about something Donald Trump posted on Truth Social. He's been very busy posting stuff. If you don't follow him, you should. He's accusing the Democrats of paying celebrities millions of dollars to endorse Vice President Kamala Harris during her campaign. He wrote on Truth Social, "Are the Democrats allowed to pay $11 million, $2 million, and $500,000 to get the endorsement of Beyonce, Oprah, and Reverend Al? I don't think so. Totally against the law, and I have heard there are many others." Your thoughts on this, Rob? Should there be accountability for these alleged payments to celebrities to endorse a candidate?
Absolutely, there should be further investigation into this and questions as to why Kamala Harris was allowed to get away with it. Certainly, if Donald Trump was doing something similar with Joe Rogan or other celebrities, I bet that the Democrats would be insisting on an investigation. In this particular case, I think it's so particularly egregious because Kamala Harris had $1 billion at her disposal, and she was shelling out some of this money to the likes of Beyonce and Oprah for these high-profile appearances. Remember, she went on that podcast, Call Her Daddy, and essentially built the set for the host of that show. So a number of questionable things that took place with the campaign dollars, Rick, and I hope that Republicans will investigate this and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Well, apparently she's not very good at investing because that money did not pay off. Rob Bluey, thanks so much for joining the 11th Hour Report. Appreciate the common sense. Coming up